Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today is part 3 of our 2024 KaffeBox Advent Calendar Blind Taste Test Ranking Series. This series is broken down into 5 parts, with today's video featuring coffees 13 through 18, and the other videos featuring coffees 1 through 6, 7 through 12, and 19 through 24, with the winner of each of these videos, as well as 2 wildcards, making it to our 5th and final video to determine our favorite coffee from the 2024 KaffeBox Advent Calendar. So let's go ahead and introduce the coffees that will be featured in today's video, beginning with day 13, which is the Finca Origenes, a honey-processed Costa Rica from Kafferäven, based out of Gothenburg, Sweden. Day 14 is the Kiangoi Factory, wash-processed Kenya from Austrått Kaffebränneri, based out of Sandnes, Norway. Day 15 is the Geisha Cidral, a wash-processed Honduras from K&B Kafferosteri, based out of Laholm, Sweden. Day 16 is the Los Tongos, a wash-processed Honduras from Fuglen, based out of Oslo, Norway. Day 17 is the Juan Jimenez, a wash-processed Colombia from Standout Coffee, based out of Stockholm, Sweden. And day 18 is the Ixban, a wash-processed Guatemala from Kaffa, based out of Oslo, Norway. All right, so let's go ahead and move these out of the way for the time being. And as always, none of these cups are labeled anywhere except on the bottom. We just like to shuffle them around for good measure, as it also gives us an opportunity to discuss what we have in our hands here today. And this is certainly a step up in challenge, as this one features 5 wash-processed coffees, and the one non-washed coffee on this table is a honey-processed coffee, and a Costa Rican one at that. So while I do feel like that might be the easiest coffee to pick out from this table, it does get a lot more complicated from there, as we do have a pink bourbon coffee, which should offer some Kenyan-like characteristics, and then we do have a Kenyan coffee, and then in addition to that we have a Honduran SL28, so that could complicate things even further, as I do expect all of those coffees to have some Kenyan-like characteristics. Outside of that, we do have 2 Honduran coffees, one of which is a Geisha, so I feel like that one should be pretty easy. That being said, with the Guatemalan coffee on this table, it's possible that they might share some characteristics as well. All of this is to say that it does get a bit more complicated in this blind taste test. However, I think what might make it slightly easier is the fact that I do have a fair bit of familiarity with a number of the coffee roasters in this video, as K&B is the only coffee roaster that I've tried only once before, and that was in one of our previous blind taste test rankings videos. Outside of that, Kafferäven has featured on this Advent Calendar series a bit in the past, and then Standout's a coffee roaster we've reviewed a number of times, and Fuglen's a coffee roaster we've reviewed a couple of times, and then interestingly enough, Kaffa is a coffee roaster we've reviewed in the past, and one that has won a previous blind taste test ranking series video from KaffeBox. However, they have transitioned from the Probat to the Loring since then, and this is going to be my first time ever trying one of their Loring coffees. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, but let's go ahead and give this a start. Cup number 1. And this time around, I don't have to worry about any of these coffees being too overly processed, so I can dive right into them. This one's nice. I feel like it does have some slightly more candied characteristics to it. It does give me some slight Kenyan-like vibes, which doesn't necessarily narrow it down, as I felt like a number of these coffees were going to have those characteristics to it. I don't think it's the Kenyan. While it does have some slight Kenyan-like vibes, I don't think it's truly Kenyan-like in that regard. Placing it right here for right now, and let's go ahead and move on to cup number 2. This one right here is a bit tame, and I'm wondering what this one could possibly be. My first impression is that it's going to be one of our Central American coffees. It could possibly be the Geisha, but I would hope that the Geisha would have a bit more intensity than this one does. Placing it right here for right now, not necessarily the most intense coffee, though it is offering some of those more traditional Central American characteristics. Cup number 3. This one right here, I have a couple of guesses as to what it might be, but it's not quite as good as this coffee was. It is offering some slight savoriness to it, and it could be, once again, one of those Kenyan-like coffees, or it could actually even be the Costa Rican coffee. I'm not entirely sure. I was wondering if maybe that Costa Rican coffee might find its way into tripping me up in that regard as well, because it would offer some red fruits too. Leaving it right there for right now. Second place, let's go ahead and move on to cup number 3. This one right here is actually a lot better than some of the other ones we've had up to this point. I'm wondering if I want to place it all the way up here for right now. I think that the cleanliness and some of the sweetness coming from this one is my favorite of these 4 coffees as of this moment. It isn't offering any of the characteristics that I haven't been the biggest fan of as of this moment. So I'm going to place it right here for right now. Have some preliminary guesses as to what it might be, but let's go ahead and move on to cup number 5. This one's either going to be that Kenyan or the pink Bourbon coffee. And it'll definitely be interesting to try to narrow that down. I definitely think it's better than this coffee. I'm going to say, accidents happen, that it's better than this coffee. All right, and that takes us to our final coffee, cup number 6. Okay. And where do I want to place this one actually? So I think this is either the Kenyan or the pink Bourbon, and the other one is the Kenyan or the pink Bourbon. So I can't quite recall where we put that one, given that we had a little bit of a mishap right here. But I'm going to run through these one more time and start taking some guesses. So let's go ahead and start with this one right here. And this one, I believe, was probably going to be my favorite of the coffees on this table. I think so. I think I'm happy leaving it there in first place. On second thought, this one might possibly be our Kenyan coffee, and I think I'm leaning that way actually. I am really not sure. A lot of these coffees are now offering Kenyan-like characteristics, a lot of that savoriness to it. This is a bit more tricky than I was expecting. Okay. Let's start taking some guesses. I'm going to guess, based off my own preferences, that this one right here is going to be our Honduran Geisha, which was number 15. And I'm guessing that based off of the sweetness and the clarity of this one, as it does lend itself towards being a bit more traditional in that regard. And then here's where things get really fun. I think if that's the Geisha, then this one right here has to be the Guatemala, which would make it number 18. And now here's where things get really fun, as it's going to be interesting to try to figure out which of these 4 coffees is which. I think one of these is the Honduran SL28 and one of these is the Costa Rica. I think that the brightness of these two are just too distinct to not be the Kenyan and the pink Bourbon coffee. I'm going to be switching these. I think that this is the Kenya, which is number 14. Very, very Kenyan-like. I think that this is the pink Bourbon then, which is number 17. And then I think that that would make, should be pretty easy to tell. It's not though. I'm gonna guess Costa Rica, and that would make this one the Honduran coffee. So Honduran, this is the Costa Rica. And then this one should be the Honduran coffee. All right, let's see how we did. Not really confident whatsoever on this one. This one was actually a lot more tricky than even I was expecting, and I did expect this one to be a bit more difficult. So this one right here I said was the Guatemala, so number 18. And it is the Guatemala from Kaffa. And I did mention that one of these was going to be the Central American coffee. They're both offering Central American characteristics to them. And I was really hoping that this one would be the Geisha coffee, and it was just a little bit of a wish and hope on this one. That's a little bit disappointing given the previous experiences I had with Kaffa were extremely positive, but yeah, that one is my least favorite. It didn't offer the same intensity as the rest of these coffees. This one right here I said was the Costa Rica, so it should say number 13. And it is. I'm feeling a lot more confident now. And this one right here, I was kind of surprised, and what tripped me up on it is that it's a very clean Costa Rican coffee. And interestingly enough, it's not necessarily offering the type of intensity that I would have expected for a honey processed Costa Rican coffee. And what lent me towards believing that this one was, they're both offering red fruits. However, this one is offering a little bit more of a unique brightness, and it could still trip me up. I could get this confused with one of the other Kenyan-like coffees on this table, but this one I said was our Honduran SL28, which is the one from Fuglen, so it should say number 16. Okay. Very relieved on that one. And it was kind of a last second call on those two coffees, but I kind of explained my thinking between these two. Let's go ahead and move on, and here's where things could possibly get tricky. So I shuffled these two around. This one I said was a Kenyan coffee, which I believe is 14, which is from Austrått, the Kiangoi, so it should say number 14. And it is. And I can breathe a sigh of relief as I'm 100% confident now that I got these right. So I mentioned going into this, offering so much brightness, offering so many Kenyan-like characteristics. And if this one was maybe a little less tomato-like, then I might have been tripped up because they both had a lot of bright red fruit aspects to them. This one right here just had a lingering tomato-like finish to it, and that gave this coffee away, which means that this one right here is going to be our pink bourbon from Standout number 17. And it is. Okay. And that means that our winner is number 15, K&B Kafferosteri, and it is the Geisha Cidral, washed Honduras, number 15. And I was already thinking ahead on wanting to try this one more time. That's very nice. I really like that coffee. Our first place finishers in all three of these first three videos have been really, really nice, and I'm dying to know how they're going to compare in that final video. I don't think that this one's going to move on. I think that the second place finishers from the other ones I enjoyed a little bit more than this one. But it is very interesting. This one has been a very enjoyable one for me, given the coffee roasters that are on this table and given that there were so many wash processed coffees here. This one's really nice, and this one's moving on to the final, but I'm going to leave this blind taste test at that. So this one right here has been part 3 of our 2024 KaffeBox Advent Calendar Blind Taste Test Ranking Series. Thank you for watching.